Hello and welcome to the Trusted Podcast.
Have we got a fantastic guest here for you today? The Queen of MPS herself, none other than Justine Randall, Chief Commercial Officer at Tatton Investment.
Sit back, grab a cuppa, and get ready for the content.
Justine Randall, the
Good
Queen
afternoon.
of MPS.
Well, thank you.
Welcome to the Trusted Podcast.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks for coming down. We really appreciate it.
No problem.
I believe it was a bit of an interesting journey down today from Swindon.
Every journey is an interesting journey for me at the moment. This was a journey up, so I live in the south. It's a long way north, I have to say. I've never been here before.
Should try Inverness, Justine.
Oh, really? Yeah, I've flown there. I don't think I'll be going there in my car, but that's a whole other story. So every journey is interesting for me at the moment. When you sit uncomfortably on nine points on your licence, then every journey is a bit of a wing and a prayer, but had to bully someone to driving me here today.
Good. At least we got you here.
My pleasure.
Why don't we take it back to where it all kind of started? So, university dropout.
Yep.
Experience in the military.
Yep.
To now the Queen of MPS.
Yeah, what a journey.
Yeah, what a journey. How's your upbringing kind of influenced that? And how did you ultimately get into sales?
I'm from a military family. And I think a lot of people who are from military families think that that's going to be perhaps either the only route or the best route. My parents definitely wanted me to join the forces of some kind. My dad was in the RAF, had a lovely upbringing. My dad was a medic. My mum was a nurse. I think they always inevitably thought I would enter medicine in some way. I was in the combined corps, so I did air training corps as a youngster. Really nice way to learn discipline, nice way to keep fit, meet lots of great people. And inevitably, I was lucky enough to secure a bursary with the Army. So entered a medical degree through the Army, fully sponsored, very lucky, although this was before fees for university. I'm of a certain vintage where we didn't have fees for university. And very much enjoyed the first year and a half of my degree. Something didn't quite feel right. And got a part-time job at a little company called Allied Dunbar. And during my time at Allied Dunbar, where I started working Saturdays and Sundays, I learned about financial planning. I actually got my FPC1, as they were called back then, and was invited. They enticed me and said, if you decide this degree isn't for you, Justine, then we would welcome you onto our graduate training programme. And we think that you would be quite good. We think that you would have a lovely career in financial services. And that was where the little seed was planted. It went from there.
And what made you join the dark side, Justine?
Being planning.
No, over to sales from planning.
Over to sales. So I started my career as a financial planner, was put through a training programme at Allied Dunbar involving lots of really intense training, etc. And in doing so, I met lots of great people. And I was running this small part of Allied Dunbar's independent business called Open Work Market Solutions. And OMS had a real specialism in retirement planning. So even back 25 years ago, there was a sort of niche market for clients who were tipping over into decumulation. And in my career there, I met a company called Retirement Advantage, and they were running, building impaired life annuities. So it was an area less travelled, pre-pension freedom, so pre a lot of the legislation we are dealing with today. And we sold at OMS a lot of impaired life annuities. And Retirement Advantage said to me, we've never had a business get to grips with what we do like you have. And I became like a trainer for them. So they asked, would I do some speeches to some of the other annuity bureaus that were in existence? And that's where I started realising that not only did I like financial planning and advice, but I actually liked training and mentoring as well. So I accepted a job with Retirement Advantage, and that was my first sales job. So I built and ran their sales team, and then really had the best job because I got to travel around the country working with other IFAs, helping them understand the solutions, and spreading the word really, which is effectively sales.
You've had a kind of variety of stints at different places, a lot of household names. What would you say are the benefits of kind of moving around or staying at one place? I
think, given I'm of a fair age now, I've had probably 4 key roles. And I think having a foundation in planning was very helpful in terms of having a real understanding of how difficult the role of a financial advisor is. And certainly as a young age, all the gear and no idea would be a good description for me. I think if I were a planner now, I'd be a much better one with all the life experience that I have. But certainly having the qualifications and the technical prowess and capability positioned me so well for so many of the roles I've been lucky enough to hold since. So I think for me, almost the perfect storm, being an advisor, then doing some compliance administration. So I had a brief stint on, that is the dark side, in compliance. But that too brought with it such huge merits in terms of understanding of regulation, of all of the guidance, consultation papers, the way the FCA think, and hopefully what they're trying to achieve through their guidance, that pearls of wisdom they pass down. And then moving across to provider land, so moving out to my first real sales job. So instead of selling for my own benefit as a planner, but selling for an institution or a provider as such, a true life company mentality. And that was very much in the at-retirement space, so quite a niche market in that sense. And then stepping across to Tatton from there some 7.5 years ago now, that just really blew my mind because I had such limited experience of being a planner, understanding the scope of advice, but not really understanding the full breadth and depth of the investment landscape. So a huge learning curve for me. Going in there, being very, very technically qualified as a planner and then for retirement advice, but not really understanding extra challenges of investment advice as well.
Right. And in the provider land, as you called it, you've held regional sales roles and also the strategic partner side. Tell us your differences and your experiences of perhaps those roles and what they entail.
Strategic partners, I think, is one of the least understood roles in financial in the financial landscape, and actually probably one of the roles I've enjoyed most. If I think about the role that I did at Retirement Advantage, running national accounts, running strategic partnerships, it gives you such a privileged insight to so many different distribution businesses. So at the time, Retirement Advantage were working through the nationals and networks, which largely look similar to that they are today. So you had your restricted businesses, your tied businesses and your independent businesses, directly authorised, and then your appointed reps. So carving the landscape up into the different pots and thinking about the engagement opportunities from a provider perspective. It doesn't really matter what your product is. What matters is how efficiently you're going to distribute that. So that gave me a terrific understanding in terms of the power of unlocking distribution. And really that's key, whether you're selling toothpaste or annuities or investment bonds or MPS. Doesn't really matter. Yep. It's about building trust and relationships with the key decision makers in each of those businesses and making your product or service stand out. So for me, that was the best education. Understanding, I was selling relatively niche product, impaired life annuities. Whoever wants to know about those, certainly nobody now post George Osborne and his pension freedoms. But if I'd had, at the time, it was a good solution. It was one of the best of breed, so it was relatively easy to sell. But I couldn't get round the thousands of planners myself. So it became very clear to me that the efficiency was only going to come through having an army of people doing it for you, hence recognising the value. And that's where my very early relationships were built as a relatively young person, really going back nearly 20 years now. Having been a planner, I knew some of them, but I had to build relationships with decision makers at the times in the likes of Tenet, in the likes of 360, in the likes of Two Plan, Lighthouse, all these businesses, some of them still around today, some of them not, but really, really important from a relationship and trust perspective. I'm still going back to these people now, 20 years later, and understanding that I didn't let them down then. I will not let them down now. So it's very, very important to deliver on what you promise.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess kind of coming forward a little bit, it's been no secret that Tatton's an incredibly successful company. A lot of that will be down to the sales team, yourself and the individuals that are working with you. What are some of the standout traits from individuals that you've worked with who've been successful as part of that team?
Been very fortunate in every company that I've been in. There have been some incredible, talented people of all different ages and all different shapes and sizes. And I think diversity of thought is one of the key threads that I would say is critical to a sales team. If you hire a group of individuals from the same background, you're going to get the same outcome every single time. And at Tatton, the team I inherited was pretty established. There were 2 gentlemen there that had been with the business since day one. But they hadn't really had the benefit of much mentoring and they hadn't really taken the business outside of the early adopters. I had the benefit of a clean sheet of paper, and I was able to recruit individuals in that fitted the culture I was trying to create. So diversity of thought combined with just a real true sense of commitment to the IFA sector, and being able to take that combined with a really solid product offering, combined with the best market forces. If you're looking at Tatton specifically, we have growth of assets on platform, really strong market conditions, and a lot of regulatory pressure driving advisors away from running investments themselves. I've called it the perfect storm a number of times, but it really is, to be honest. It's not something that I've delivered personally. It's something that the business collectively has delivered through a lot of good luck and tailwinds, combined with the right force of nature and energy as well. But in terms of specifically your question around what do I look for and what is it that's been key, a genuine commitment, hard work, high energy, a real zest for life and fun as well. I think if you're selling, you have to balance that community of winning and success, and a drive and a desire for success, leading by example. So yes, I'm happy to muck in. I love being involved in pitches, and that's something that's been key for me from day one. I don't ever want to be part of a team where they can't trust me. They've got a brilliant pitch. I want to be the first person that comes to mind, and I still want to be involved. But empowering them to do the job without me as well, but being able to rely on me to play the right role. So now when we go into a pitch, I say, what do you want from me? I don't assume that I'm going to take the lead. I don't assume I'm going to tell the story. If they just want me to sit there and answer questions if asked, I'm very happy to do that as well, because you can't grow the next generation if you take the front foot every single time.
Definitely. Amazing. And you mentioned there, Justine, that zest for life, that enthusiasm. They're personality traits. What are your thoughts around that and the soft skill side of things versus technical, qualifications and exam results?
I would always say that you can impart knowledge, but you can't impart personality and trust. And I mean that sincerely. I think if you are growing a business based on trust, and if we're honest, financial services, doesn't matter what your product is. If you're stripping it back, you're buying from somebody because you place your trust in them. I'm delivering a presentation on brand at the moment, and I'm talking a lot about the importance of trust and the importance of delivery in terms of delivering a brand and delivering of promises. And in financial services, trust is even more important than ever, because there's such a deep-rooted sense of loss if a decision is wrong. And if you're talking about legacy, then it's hugely emotive for the clients. So if the advisor is an extension of the client's wishes, then we as providers are an extension of the advisor's business. And that's the culture that I'm trying to engender in everyone I work with. So for me, personality traits, honesty, and just a general sense of reliability, and somebody that I always say, if you're in the trenches, would you want to be with this team?
Yeah.
But that's what it comes down to. Yeah. Who would you pick? Who will go to war with you?
Yeah.
Because sales is a little bit like a war sometimes.
We say a very similar thing, Justine. That's why we're laughing.
It is, isn't it? And you've got to pick the people that you're going to laugh with, you're going to cry with, you're going to celebrate with. And when you win, it's nothing better than winning together. You haven't won because of something I've done. We've won because of something we've all delivered together. So it's about being part of a shared experience. And sales is very much that, because it's really hard work.
It is.
Proper hard work.
It is. You moved into senior leadership as well, from regional sales. What was that transition like? And was there any kind of key skills that you needed to hone before you came across?
I think the first step into line management is a difficult one,
yeah.
Especially if you're within the team. So if you're incumbent within the team, very difficult, because you've got to suddenly be different. And sometimes you have to start a new job to be able to really reinvent yourself. Yeah. So stepping up from within the team is the first thing. And then you're suddenly privy to all this information that you can't repeat. You always think, I wanted to know that stuff till you know it. And then you think, actually, there's a huge burden that comes with knowledge, because it's power, and you have to know when to use it and when not to use it. And when I have new managers coming on, that's the first thing I say to them. You're now going to be in the circle of trust. And that means I'm going to tell you things. I'm going to share things with you. And you're going to have to learn when it's appropriate to repeat those and when it's not. And we're going to learn very quickly whether you're ready for that step. And there are going to be some mistakes made along the way. And so for me, making those mistakes in a safe environment is something I was lucky with. So I had a great line manager, and he coached me, allowed me to make mistakes, and then brought me back and taught me how not to make them again. And so for me, some of the best successes I've seen in people that I've grown and that have come through under my management have been allowing them to push boundaries and make mistakes, but knowing that I will help them when they do, and that the next time they'll make them less. And that it's all about being human and building the trust of colleagues and becoming a leader and becoming a mentor and a manager is nothing more than that. It's about helping people bring the best out of their talents, but doing so at the right pace and in the right way. And I've spoken about this before, but it's sometimes about letting them go as well. It's about when you realise you come to the end of the line together and you can no longer do anything more for that person because either they've maybe outgrown you or they've outgrown the role that your company can provide for them. And sometimes that's the hardest parting, when you have to say to somebody, actually, I think it's time. Because you don't want to lose them because they're doing a terrific job for you, but you can no longer help them with their next steps.
Interesting. And you've, as you say, you sort of were at a position with Tatton where you could start, fresh piece of paper and build out.
That was it.
Build out an amazing team. Yeah. What are you looking for then? Less of the when someone's at the end of their journey, at the start of the journey. What are you looking for in someone that's starting the team? What are you looking for in someone that is going from perhaps a regional role to a management role?
I think at that point you're looking for somebody who has mastered their trade. So they've got a really solid base and a good understanding of the technical landscape. Ideally, they would be a bit of a role model in terms of achievements. So it's really nice if somebody who's taking a step into management can be seen as an example of what good looks like. I think by leading by example is the best way to gain trust. And if you're going to be managing people, then you're going to have to learn the new skills of management. So it's nice if you don't then have to learn about the product that you're ultimately selling or distributing as well. So some of the best leaders come from within the team. But it is possible to bring somebody in and teach them the product at the same time if they have the leadership skills. But fundamentally, I think if you are recognised as what good looks like, that can be a really good starting place. And combined with just a willingness to listen, ask questions, ask what have people done before. I've got a brand new leader within my business at the moment who's joined us from a very large company. And she asked me a really great question today. She said, so there was somebody in this post before me. She said, what did they do that you really want to be repeated? I thought that was a really bold question. And that's an example of the type of individual she is. She understands that somebody went before her, they've moved on, and she's like, what did they do well? I want to start with that, and then I'll build my own personality around that. I thought, what a great, great young lady. And that she will go on to do terrifically well, I know. And it's seeing those little sparks of brilliance in people that excite me now. And I'm not quite old enough that I'm all about legacy. I've still got a few scars to leave on the landscape myself, hopefully. But when that time does come, I think I can see myself going on through some of the people that I've been so privileged to mentor over the years as well.
And a lot of the good bits will come from yourself and they'll be able to pass that down.
Well, I'm from the people who taught me.
Yeah.
Because ultimately that's what it comes back to, isn't it? You're not self-taught. You learn through experience. Mm.
You were saying before, you give a lot of freedom to people that are kind of working underneath you. How does that work from strategy at your end when it comes down to kind of sales strategy across the team? Do you allow individuals to kind of take that forward themselves, adopt different things, or is there kind of a top-down approach that you try and employ?
So at Tatton, we run a traditional postcode block. So we split our country into 7 geographical regions. So that's a very tried and tested method. So very traditional in many senses. However, each of my regions, they run them like their own businesses. So we're looking for pioneers, entrepreneurs in the way that they run their territories. There's a lot of central information. So communication and consistency is very key from the top in that sense. So we run a meeting every Monday where we share messaging. Monday morning, 9:00. They hate me for it, but it's really important. That's my opportunity to say, right, guys, this is what's happening, and cascade the message down. So what events have we got on? What pitches have we got on? What opportunities have we got to engage with our advisors? What marketing messages are there? What's happening at Tatton Central? Then it's up to the guys to think about how they want to run their own territories. So they then think about their own events, their own meetings in their diaries. How are they engaging with their telephony support infrastructure? What are they doing with the investment team? How are they then running their own panels? So we have a huge bank of central knowledge that is accessible, and the exec team, so we really pride ourselves on that accessibility.
Justine, you've got a really interesting view on how to incentivize your team, in a monetary sense. I know that you're very happy to share your thoughts. Tell us more about that.
I think it's really important if you are in a sales environment, which we definitely are. I think it's really important that when your team come to work, they know what the earning opportunity is, and that they know the harder they work, the luckier they're going to get, generally speaking. So I've always been a huge fan of having very transparent remuneration, having potentially the opportunity to earn many times your basic salary and bonus if you are as successful as the best salespeople possibly can be. And I also have no issue with my sales team potentially earning more than me, because ultimately if they are earning, then the business is going to be successful too. So uncapped bonus schemes are something I'm a big fan of. Very transparent bonus schemes are something I'm a huge fan of. And having a clear line of sight between performance of the individual and performance of the overall business means that from a revenue perspective, the business will always be happy, more than happy, to pay bonuses to salespeople. So I think complete transparency would be the best way of approaching that.
Brilliant. Another thing that was really interesting when we initially spoke, we did some research. About 67% of sales directors in the UK, not just specific to our industry, are male.
Okay, interesting.
Why do you think that is? And do you think we should be doing more to get to elevate women to those positions?
I think I would say some of the best bosses I've ever had have been men. I have also had terrific female bosses. So I think sex is kind of irrelevant, but I think that there are a lack of females in financial services. But I think that's been one of the best kept secrets. And I would be lying if I didn't say that I think I've had a better career because I'm a female. So I think that there are times that we need to encourage more ladies to step forward into the light. If I had my time again, I would definitely encourage more of my friends to enter financial services. I'm sure I could have had a great career in the army. I could have had a great career as a doctor if I'd been lucky enough to complete my course. But I've had a better career in financial services, being surrounded by mostly men and being able to play the difference and celebrate the difference in being a lady. I know, for example, if I go and do a speech, if I go onto a talk, I'm probably going to be the only female presenter or one of a couple. And that therefore means I'm going to stand out. It also means my head's above the parapet. So if I'm terrible, it's going to be memorable. So there is an element of pressure to be as good or better. But I think if you are as good as or better, you're going to look even better. So for me, I think all talent should be celebrated and pushed forward. But I think there is a job to be done to encourage more women to participate in financial services. There's definitely an opportunity for female planners as well. Female sales, 100%. Men love to buy from women.
Yeah.
And for me, I know that my female team members can often get an appointment when my male counterparts can't. Just saying.
How do we do that? How do we push more women into our industry?
Well, I think it has to come from education and awareness. I write quite a lot in the press about the lack of planners, about the fact there's a shortage of planners. And I think it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If we raise awareness of planning opportunities and we raise awareness of the education and the ways to get into this industry, then we're therefore going to drive people in. I've started to speak at schools, so I've been doing some education in local colleges and universities, really enjoying that. And I think through mentorship programs, every single life company or investment company has a responsibility to bring new talent through, male and female.
Brilliant. You've just hit the nail on the head there about mentorship. Any examples from your end about how you've kind of helped guide someone on the right path? I know you discussed before about one of your old kind of male bosses guiding you in the right place. So it'd be interesting to hear a bit more about that.
I was lucky enough. I've worked under 2 or 3 very, very strong leaders. 3 that I would definitely name. So Keith Carby was my first boss. He was Allied Dunbar's CEO at the time. I was very young, but he placed a lot of trust in me and encouraged that whole empowerment. And that's been something that stuck with me and really resonated. Giving people autonomy, giving them the opportunity, but being there to hold the hand if things don't go so well. I've really learned that from him. I worked for Mary Ann McIntyre, who's gone on also now to work in a number of very high profile businesses. She taught me about the importance of technology and the importance of scale. So she came from a platform background, and she really taught me about facilitating and enabling technology to support advice. And so that's been the legacy that she left with me. And then the most recently, I've been working for Paul Hogarth at Tatton, and Paul has taught me the importance of trust and the importance of relationship, and how something I already knew, but really learning to leverage that and extend that through every thread of the business, and how the importance of trust and service ultimately will lead to the success of your business if it's a people-centric industry, which financial services most definitely is. So each one of them, as leaders, have left different things with me. I think I've been incredibly fortunate in that sense. But if I can bring those together for a few of the people that I'm lucky enough to work with, then I think hopefully I'm growing a decent future. Really important.
We know that field sales can be a lonely place. Sometimes mentorship is a great opportunity to, use people as a sounding board at least, and share your thoughts. We've spoken about what Trusted is trying to achieve, and we want a network of like-minded sales professionals to be able to collaborate more. As an industry, we're not very good at that on the provider side, especially. How do you see that we bridge the gap?
Such a good point. It's so lonely. And field sales is lonely at every level. It's lonely in telephony. It's lonely in account management. It's lonely as face-to-face sales. It's even lonely as leadership, because I don't have peers either. It's the same regardless of what level you're at. It's so hotly competitive that I think it is a shame that we don't do more sharing of ideas and we don't really come together more, because ultimately we will lead to better outcomes. And one of the things I've always encouraged the people that I've worked with to remember is that you should never burn a bridge, because you just never know who you're going to end up working for or with. So I don't know that somebody that haven't worked for me before isn't going to come back into my life, or that I'm not going to come back into their life. Yeah. I could end up working for them. You just don't know how the cookie's going to crumble. And I have people now in my life at strategic partners who maybe I've managed before, but they're now my client. So I'm very much now serving them. And it's just interesting how relationships can change over the years. It really doesn't matter. You treat people with the same respect regardless. But in terms of community, I think that's the great thing about podcasts and this type of community that you're building, is to encourage people to have a safe space, to share best practice, to talk about things they find difficult, to be able to ask a bank of experts, I've got this problem, how would you overcome that? I think with technology, you have the ability to leverage a huge pool of knowledge now, and it doesn't need to be burdensome from a time perspective either. If you have a bunch of questions on an online app, it can even be anonymous. Yeah. You could have answers from a community, and then the candidate can choose the one that works best for them. I think it's part of our responsibility. I think it's part of the older generation or the more mature or experienced generation's role to help the people coming through, because we've had that help. Yeah. And if people aren't in the office all day, every day anymore, you're losing some of that connectivity. I was in the office 5 days a week, and now we have people in 1 or 2 or 3. Mm-hmm. So we've lost some of that glue. Yep. So tech can fill that gap. And I think cross collaboration between companies is something that's should be done more. We're technically rivals. You work for a company that's technically a competitor of mine, and yet I see terrific practice through your business. And I think that celebration of good practice and good training and general good humans is something we should do more of.
And it allows us to serve our clients best, Absolutely. Which benefits everyone as well.
How about the fact they may be mutual clients too?
Yeah.
It's entirely possible. Yeah. And some of my best successes in selling have come from collaborating with peers, competitors, and building solutions together to work alongside. Yeah. And it's just about learning where your niche is and how you can do that without undermining. That symbiosis rather than competition.
Yeah.
There's hope.
There definitely is. So you've had an incredibly successful career, Justine, but undoubtedly you'll have made mistakes along the way.
Definitely.
What have they taught you, and how can others learn from that as well to not make the same pitfalls?
Wow, mistakes. No one likes to talk about their failings.
9 speeding points.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, apart from those, yeah. A love for cars, that's my biggest mistake. So probably when I first started managing people, it was the point I mentioned earlier, probably subliminally, because it just sits in the back of my mind. Specifically, probably suddenly having this wealth of information or knowledge available to me. I'm resisting that temptation to repeat that and to use it in forums, which is not appropriate. So I think I definitely fell into that trap in my earliest examples of managing people, repeating information or sharing stuff that really shouldn't have been shared. And I think the first time you get called out for that is the hardest lesson of all. I certainly remember very clearly being called into my manager's office and saying, this is a little awkward, but I need to ask, did you say this? And at that point, you feel a little bit sick.
Stomach drops. Yeah.
Oh my God, I knew I shouldn't have done that, but I did it. And so I think for me, that's why I always head that off with people when they take those first steps now, because I always say, right, this is where it all changes. So from this point forward, our relationship's going to be different.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you things. I'm going to share things with you. And with that, you need to understand that that's for you and you only. And so, I'm placing that trust in you. And we're only going to have that conversation once, because once it's broken, it's broken. And so I'm very proactive with that, because I know that was a massive pitfall for me. Mm-hmm. That's a really explicit example, but it was one that hurt really hard. It bit really hard, because I had then to spend a lot of time restoring and repairing the trust with somebody that I really cared about and I really wanted to do well for them. So I had to come backwards and to go forwards a lot with them. So that's a very good example. And I think another one would be around not doing the hard work. So sometimes when you progress very fast, you maybe get promoted rapidly, you lose touch with what actually happens at the sharp end. And so I have seen people that I've been lucky enough to promote from within teams that I've run, and they've gone too far away from actually then doing the work. So the biggest piece of advice I would give to anyone is to stay connected. And that's a big piece of feedback I was given early in my career. And that's why, for me, being out with advisors all day, every day is the best use of my time now, because that's what informs me as to what is worrying them.
Yeah.
I'm in a service-centred business, therefore the information they give me is the best knowledge I need.
Sounding board.
Yeah. If you've got the right product and the service, the feedback they give you will help you stay relevant. Things move so fast in financial services, whether it's AI, whether it's technology, whether it's the platform industry or, the macro environment. That feedback needs to stay relevant all the time. So don't get too big for your boots. Stay humble, keep it real, stay connected.
And for the perhaps college leaver, as with myself, same with Marcus, uni grad, uni dropout.
Yep.
18-year-old boy or girl in the industry, looking at our industry and wanting to make it to the heights that you've made it to, Justine.
It's not that high.
Senior leadership. What advice would you give them?
I would say, keep it real, work really hard. I would say to anyone that I do have high standards and I expect a lot from the people that I work with. But that's because I've learned very, very early on in my career that it really is true. The harder you work, the luckier you get. And if you build a solid technical foundation, you asked earlier about what's more important, technical or interpersonal. Interpersonal always is more important, but you must back that up with a solid technical foundation and an understanding of what you're selling. Because to convince anyone to buy anything, you've got to understand what it does for them and you've got to be able to articulate it. And an advisor won't buy something if they don't believe in it. So you have to sell it with the most passion you've got. And if you genuinely believe in it, that will come across to the IFA. And I think that doesn't matter what your widget is, if it's Colgate or crisps or holidays or cars, whatever you're selling, if you love it, that passion will come across. So I think work in an industry you're passionate about, definitely. Doesn't matter what you're selling, but love it. If you love it, you'll articulate well. Never, ever, ever let your customer down if you can. I think for me, delivery and trust, they will remember when you went above and beyond, but they will remember more when you didn't. And so for me, the importance of showing up and not failing on your promise, I'm really, really believe in that. And service is everything. We are in a service-centred industry, especially if we look at investment solutions, not just MPS, but it's so commoditized now. Yep. Everything's the same price. Yep. Everything's available on the same platforms. And on paper, tick, tick, you could do a 9-box grid and we'd all have 9 ticks, right? So when it comes down to it, what are you buying? You're buying the whites of the eyes and you're buying the trust of the people. So that's what I'm looking for. And that's what I would encourage people to have. So that when you sit in front of your IFA, that he or she knows that you will do the best for them. If they place their trust in you, they're getting you. Not the person in the office, it's you, and you're accountable. So being accountable, working hard, and being a font of knowledge. So just being the go-to person. I really take pride in the fact that title, the Queen of MPS, is hilarious. However, there's not much about Tatton that you could ask me that I wouldn't know. And that is a huge, huge position of privilege. And to have been part of a business that's grown around me, I haven't made it grow. I've been lucky to be part of it whilst it's grown. But I'd like to think I've had a little role in that. Yeah. And therefore, to be in something that you're so knowledgeable about and so passionate about, but fundamentally, it just comes back to planning. It just comes back to wanting to do the best. So be in something you're passionate about and live and breathe it, and don't overcomplicate it. Yeah. Because I think sometimes we get carried away and then it becomes something more than it needs to be.
Yeah. Before we came on the podcast, you were saying Tatton in the midst at the minute of 20 huge events which you're doing up and down the country in front of hundreds, if not thousands, of advisors. What sort of trends are you seeing in the UK financial planning space at the minute? And is there anything that kind of excites you about the future as well? What's to come?
So much. I coming back as an IFA in my next life, cradle to grave, started as a planner, going out as a planner, if they'll have me. Absolutely. I think there's never been a better time to be an IFA. That's what I would say. It has been said a lot, but I truly believe it. If you look at the landscape, the need for planning, so much complexity in terms of tax. The need for advice has never been greater, and yet the access to advice is at an all-time low in terms of pricing, in terms of affordability. I think technology is going to be key, so we need to leverage tech to deliver advice. I don't mean robo, I don't mean guided advice. We need to use AI. We need to use some of the great tech around meeting notes and client bank analysis and servicing to help grow the planning side. And that in turn will free up the scalability. If you look at what we've achieved in MPS using tech to deliver our service, we need to find the same enabler within the advice landscape. That's what really excites me. The fact that we can scale what we do and encourage more people to come into it. Yeah. There's such great career to be had. Flexible, great earnings, really, really great way, exciting way to go about our lives, meeting different people, traveling the world. Yeah. Why wouldn't you want to do it? Yeah. And yet there's not enough people coming in. So for me, in terms of trends that I'm seeing, the need for more advice, the need for technology to scale and leverage that advice, and the need for us to bring down cost continually. It doesn't matter which report you pick up, whether you're looking at Next Wealth, Platform, Landcat, there are so many distribution pieces out there. Price pressure is everything, protecting the advisor's fee. Yeah. And so anyone who starts with that in mind is going to be well placed. Yeah, I think.
What are Tatton doing to kind of put themselves at the forefront of all of that?
Well, I think placing the advisor first. Yep. You'll always hear from us single channel. I start and end with it always. When we wake up in the morning, we know what we do. We do MPS. We do it really well. And we don't have a complex business at all. We don't have custody. We don't have distribution. We don't have anything to confuse us. We know we're here to serve the advisor. We're here to do it at the lowest possible price. And we're here to do that with robust performance and service. So we have those key deliverables. And I think that simplicity of mind, we could so easily go away and do all those other things to wrap around it, because we could with our scale and our relationships. But we try not to be distracted. We try to just stick to our knitting. And I think for the time being, that's doing us very, very well. And we'll keep very, very firmly wedded to that path.
Amazing. And finally, Justine, what message would you like to share with the trusted community?
My message for the trusted community is that sales should be held in the highest of regards, because people buy people. And it doesn't matter what walk of life that you are in. If you are a good all-round human and you are a trusted, I love your brand, if you are a trusted person and you are to be trusted, then you're pretty much going to have a decent, solid life. And I think that to sell is a skill that's underrated. And I feel that in financial services, we're finally seeing a respect for sales and distribution individuals that we haven't seen. Historically, all of the value was placed on the investment prowess. And with technology and with tracking and with all of the indices work that we see at the moment, we're finally seeing now that you need decent salespeople and you need those trust and those relationships to distribute your solution. In a market which is underserved, it's very different because it will be demand-led. But in a market which is saturated and competitive and commoditized, comes down to the talent of the individuals. And I'm constantly amazed by the talent of people I meet in distribution day in, day out. So I would say keep going and keep being the best that you possibly can. Learn, observe, soak up the knowledge, be an absolute best of breed knowledge in your industry, in your sector, and combine that with energy and passion, and you will thrive.
Thank you for coming on the Trusted Podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Really
having me.
appreciate it.